The afternoon sun bled through the tall glass windows of the Belmont estate, painting streaks of gold across the polished marble floors. Inside, laughter echoed sharp, arrogant, and cold. The laughter of a man who had never heard the word no. Maxwell Belmont, the billionaire oil tycoon known for his ruthless business moves, lounged in his private parlor surrounded by wealthy guests, a glass of expensive scotch in hand. Cards were spread across the poker table before him, chips stacked high like miniature towers of pride. Yet, in the middle of this decadent chaos, stood a woman who didn't belong. Her name was Evelyn Cole, a housemaid in her mid-20s, dark-skinned and soft-spoken. Standing frozen near the door with a tray of half-empty glasses, trembling in her hands, Maxwell's voice cut through the chatter. "Amara," he said, eyes glinting like a predator spotting weakness. "You told me your mother used to be quite the poker player back in the day, didn't you?" Amara froze. She hadn't told him that, at least. Not exactly. One of the gossiping kitchen staff must have. She nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. Years ago, before her illness." Maxwell's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Alzheimer's, wasn't it?" The laughter around the table dimmed slightly. Amara's throat tightened. "Yes, sir," tapped his glass against the edge of the table. "Bring her here," Amara blinked. "Excuse me?" "I said bring her," Maxwell repeated, standing now, his towering frame casting a shadow over her. "You said she was a legend." "I'd like to see what a legend looks like even if her memory's gone." The guests chuckled uncomfortably. It was entertainment for them, a sick curiosity. But for Amara, it was humiliation. "Sir, my mother. She's not well. She wouldn't understand what's happening." Maxwell leaned close, his voice dropping to a whisper that stung. "If you want to keep your job and that little apartment I pay for, you'll bring her." Amara's breath caught. She looked into his eyes and saw nothing but power and cruelty staring back. That night, she drove home through the city rain, her knuckles white around the steering wheel. The headlights painted streaks across her tired eyes as she pulled into the small brick apartment where her mother, Evelyn Cole, sat by the window humming softly to herself. Evelyn was in her 70s, her once fierce eyes now distant, her memories flickering in and out like a broken film reel. But she still smiled when Amara walked in. "Baby girl," Evelyn murmured, her voice thin but kind. "You look tired." Amara knelt beside her. "Mama," she said gently, brushing her mother's silver curls, "I need you to come with me tomorrow, to the Belmont estate." Evelyn frowned slightly. "Maxwell Belmont? That's your boss, isn't it?" Amara froze. For a second, she was stunned. Her mother had remembered something. "Yes," she said softly. Evelyn's eyes flickered with something old and dangerous. A glimmer of the sharpness she once had. "I used to know that name. Long ago." Amara tried to ask what she meant, but Evelyn's gaze had drifted again, lost to the fog of her mind. The next day, Amara helped her mother dress in a soft blue sweater and scarf. As they drove up the long stone driveway of the Belmont estate, Evelyn's fingers drummed absently on her lap. Inside the mansion, the guests were already waiting. Maxwell stood at the head of the poker table, his grin widening as they entered. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "allow me to introduce the legendary Evelyn Cole, former queen of the underground poker circuit, at least according to her daughter." Laughter again. Cruel, mocking. Amara felt her stomach twist. "Sir, please." Maxwell silenced her with a glance. "Mrs. Cole," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. "Care for a game?" Evelyn looked around slowly, her eyes hazy. Then she smiled, a strange, knowing smile that sent a chill down Amara's spine. "It's been a while since I held a good hand," she said softly. Maxwell's brows lifted. The guests whispered. Cards were dealt. Evelyn's wrinkled fingers trembled as she picked them up, but then something shifted. Her posture straightened. Her eyes, though clouded, seemed to sharpen. For the first few hands, she played clumsily, fumbling with the chips. Maxwell smirked, enjoying the show. But as the game continued, the air in the room began to change. Evelyn started making moves, subtle, precise, unpredictable. The guests leaned forward. Maxwell's smirk began to fade. By the fifth round, Evelyn had cleaned out two of the men at the table. Maxwell laughed nervously. Beginner's luck? Evelyn looked up at him, her voice soft but steady. There's no such thing. Something flickered in her gaze, a flash of the woman she once was. The room had gone silent now. Everyone watching as the old woman with Alzheimer's dismantled the billionaire's arrogance one hand at a time. Amara stood behind her, hardly breathing. Every so often, she saw her mother's eyes glaze, then refocus, like a storm clearing for brief moments of light. Between those moments, something deeper was happening. Memories, fragments, patterns. By the final hand, Maxwell was sweating. He pushed all his chips forward, defiance etched across his face. All in, he said. Evelyn smiled faintly. You always did bet too high when you were losing, Max. The room froze. Maxwell's hand went rigid. What did you say? Evelyn's eyes flicked toward him, clear, piercing. You don't remember me, do you? Amara stared between them, confused. Mama. Evelyn leaned back, her voice low. You were younger then. Greedy, desperate to prove yourself. You cheated your way through every table in the South until someone called you out. That someone was me. The color drained from Maxwell's face. Amara blinked. You knew him? Evelyn nodded slowly. I beat him 20 years ago. He swore he'd never forget my face. Seems he forgot everything except his pride. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but this time it wasn't cruel. It was astonished. Maxwell's hands trembled as he turned over his cards, a full house. He smirked weakly. Let's see what you've got, old woman. Evelyn flipped hers slowly. A royal flush. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, disbelief. Amara covered her mouth, tears welling. Her mother, her fragile, fading mother, was smiling, glowing with the triumph of memory regained. Maxwell stood up abruptly, face flushed with humiliation. This is ridiculous. Evelyn's voice cut through the noise like a blade. No, Maxwell. This is justice. You forced me to play your game again. I just reminded you who taught you the rules. The billionaire stormed out, his pride in tatters. Amara knelt beside her mother, trembling. Mama, how do you remember him? Evelyn's eyes softened. I don't remember everything, baby. Just what matters. She reached out, cupping her daughter's cheek. And today, you mattered enough to bring me back. The guests left in stunned silence. Amara drove her mother home under the quiet glow of the city lights. For the first time in years, Evelyn hummed an old tune she hadn't remembered in decades. Amara realized then it wasn't the game that healed her mother. It was the fight. The fire of standing up to what was wrong. The morning after the poker game, the Belmont estate was unnervingly quiet. Newspapers were already whispering the scandal. Billionaire Maxwell Belmont loses to Alzheimer's. Patient in private poker game? The headlines splashed across the business tabloids like wildfire. Reporters camped outside his gates, hungry for a statement. Maxwell hadn't slept. He'd spent the night pacing his study, his glass desk littered with torn playing cards and half-empty bottles of whiskey. The humiliation burned through him like acid. How dare she? How dare that old woman embarrass him in front of everyone he respected? His investors, his colleagues, even his so-called friends had witnessed his downfall at the hands of a frail, fading woman. But the truth that really haunted him wasn't the loss of money or reputation. It was her words, "You don't remember me, do you?" That voice. It had stirred something deep in him. A flicker of memory buried under years of greed and arrogance. The smoky back room of a New Orleans casino, decades ago. A young woman with sharp eyes and quicker hands. Evelyn Cole, the Queen of Spades. The woman who had beaten him publicly and left him bankrupt in front of a crowd of gamblers. The night that changed everything for him. The night that made him ruthless. And now she had returned through her daughter. All people, he slammed his fist against the desk. No one makes a fool out of Maxwell Belmont, he growled. No one. Meanwhile, in the small brick apartment across town, Amara was helping her mother fix breakfast. The light streamed through the curtains, soft and golden. Evelyn was humming again, the same tune from the night before. "You're in a good mood today," Amara said with a smile, pouring coffee into 2 chipped mugs. Evelyn smiled faintly. "I had a dream," she murmured, "about cards and lights. And a man who thought he was bigger than the game?" Amara's heart clenched. "That wasn't a dream, Mama. You remember last night?" Evelyn's eyes wandered, uncertain. "A little. It comes and goes, sweetheart." She tapped her temple softly. "The mind's a tricky thing. It hides what hurts." Before Amara could respond, a knock echoed at the door. She opened it cautiously and froze. 2 men in suits stood there. "Miss Amara Cole?" one of them asked. "Yes. We're with Mr. Belmont's office. He requests your presence at the estate immediately." "Your mother as well?" Amara stiffened. "After what happened?" "No way." The man's tone hardened. "I'd advise against refusing. Mr. Belmont is offering compensation." Evelyn's hand came to rest gently on her daughter's arm. "It's all right, baby. Let's see what he wants." When they arrived at the estate, the poker table was gone. The lights were dimmer this time, the mood heavier. Maxwell stood by the fireplace, his sharp suit masking the storm brewing underneath. Mrs. Cole, he said smoothly. "Please, sit." Amara glared at him. "You humiliated my mother in front of everyone." "Why would we ever?" Maxwell raised a hand. "Because I owe her an apology. And a proposition." Amara hesitated. Evelyn remained silent, watching him with the quiet confidence of someone who'd seen the world's games played and replayed. "I'm hosting a charity poker gala this weekend." Maxwell began. "Some of the most influential people in America will be there. I'd like your mother to attend. As a guest of honor. We'll raise funds for Alzheimer's research." Mara frowned. "You expect me to believe you care about charity?" He smiled thinly. "I expect you to believe I care about redemption." Evelyn tilted her head. "And what do you expect me to do there, Maxwell?" He paused, the faintest tremor in his voice. The room went still. Amara stood abruptly. "You're not serious? You've already put her through this once?" Evelyn raised a hand to calm her. "I'll do it." Amara turned in disbelief. "Mama, no?" Her mother's eyes were calm, steady, clearer than they had been in weeks. "If this man wants to play, let him. But this time, I play on my terms." Maxwell nodded, trying to hide his grin. He thought he had her right where he wanted, center stage, lights shining, audience watching. This was his chance to reclaim his pride. But Evelyn had something he didn't. Truth. That night. As they left the mansion, Amara confronted her mother in the car. "Why would you agree to that?" Evelyn smiled softly, her wrinkled hands folded on her lap. "Because, sweetheart, he thinks this is a game. But for me, it's memory. Every card I touch brings a little of me back." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "What if you forget in the middle of it?" Evelyn looked out the window at the stars. "Then I'll just play like I always have with my heart." The night of the gala arrived like thunder. The Belmont ballroom was transformed into a spectacle of gold and light. Cameras flashed, journalists murmured, and society's elite filled every seat. Eager to witness the rematch between the billionaire and the forgotten legend, Evelyn entered slowly. Dressed in a simple black gown Amara had borrowed from a thrift shop. Yet, the moment she stepped into the room, it was as if time bowed to her presence. Conversations hushed. Heads turned. Maxwell greeted her with a polite nod, but his eyes betrayed his simmering pride. "Welcome, Mrs. Cole. Ready to make history again?" Evelyn smiled. "History never left, dear. You just weren't paying attention." The dealer shuffled the cards, and the game began. At first, Maxwell played confidently. He smirked with every hand he won, tossed chips with showy arrogance. The crowd laughed at his jokes, clapped at his wins. But Evelyn stayed quiet, patient, studying him not his cards, but his breathing, his posture, the tiny twitch in his jaw when he bluffed. Then something remarkable began to happen. Every card that touched her fingers seemed to unlock a door in her mind. She whispered to herself, queens, diamonds, the river bluff. Fragments of strategies returning, like echoes from another life. Maxwell didn't notice. But Amara did from the side of the stage, her heart racing as she watched her mother transform from fragile patient to legend reborn by the 10th hand. Evelyn began to strike. Small wins at first, then bigger ones. She was cornering him methodically, and he didn't even see it. The crowd leaned forward, the tension palpable. Beginner's luck again? Maxwell taunted, though his voice cracked slightly. Evelyn's eyes met his. You should know by now, Maxwell. I'm no beginner. The laughter this time was against him. Round after round, the game escalated. The pot grew massive. Maxwell's pride was on the line, and so was his empire, because some of the investors in that room were watching closely. A loss tonight could cost him everything. Finally, Maxwell went all in. The crowd murmured. Evelyn paused, her fingers trembling slightly. For a moment, her mind faltered. She blinked, disoriented. Amara took a step forward, panic flashing across her face. Then Evelyn looked down at the cards in her hand and smiled. I remember now. She placed them down slowly, the sound echoing through the ballroom. Maxwell's face fell. A royal flush again. The room erupted in gasps, applause. Reporters surged forward, flashes blinding. Evelyn leaned back, serene, as if she had simply fulfilled a promise to herself. Maxwell slumped in his chair, pale and defeated. The crowd wasn't laughing anymore, they were cheering for her. As Evelyn rose from the table, she turned to him one last time. Some games, Maxwell, aren't played for money. They're played for memory. The cameras caught every word. The internet would explode within hours. If you're watching this video, tell me, where are you tuning in from? Drop your city, your flag, your heart in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the greatest comebacks come from those the world has already forgotten. The morning after the gala, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Belmont estate. But it wasn't the warm golden light of victory, it was the pale, cold dawn that follows defeat. The headlines screamed across every news outlet. Black woman with Alzheimer's beats billionaire twice and exposes his greed. Maxwell sat in his office. Phone buzzing endlessly, each call bringing another crisis. Sponsors were pulling out, investors were demanding explanations. And social media had turned his arrogance into a global meme. The once untouchable mogul had become the face of humiliation. Meanwhile, across town, Evelyn sat quietly at her small kitchen table, sipping tea as if nothing had changed. Amara stood by the counter, scrolling through the endless stream of messages, news outlets, journalists, even celebrities wanting interviews. Mama, she said softly, you've gone viral? Everyone's talking about you. People are calling you the Queen of Spades again, Evelyn smiled faintly. I was never much for crowns, she murmured. Too heavy to wear. Amara watched her mother carefully. Though her memory still wavered, her presence felt stronger than ever. You really don't remember everything, do you? Evelyn looked out the window. Not all of it. Just pieces. The laughter, the smoke, the cards. Her gaze grew distant. But I remember why I stopped playing. Evelyn turned to her daughter, her voice soft. Because one night I'd beat a man so badly, he lost everything. He swore he'd never forgive me. His name was Maxwell Belmont. Amara froze. Wait, Mama, you knew him? Evelyn nodded slowly. Long ago. I was a young woman trying to prove I could survive in a man's world. He was cruel, proud, and desperate to win. I didn't realize until much later that he'd built his empire on revenge. Every business deal, every cruel act. It was his way of erasing the night a black woman beat him at his own game. Amara's chest tightened. And now you've beaten him again. Evelyn's eyes glistened. I didn't beat him, baby, I reminded him. Before Amara could respond, there was a knock at the door. When she opened it, Maxwell Belmont himself stood there. No suit, no entourage, no arrogance. Just a tired man, his eyes hollow with defeat. Mr. Belmont, Amara said sharply. You've got some nerve showing up here. I know, he said quietly. But please, I just need to talk to her. Amara hesitated, then stepped aside. Maxwell entered, removing his hat. Mrs. Cole, he said, voice trembling. You may not remember everything, but I remember everything you taught me. Evelyn looked up, calm as ever. Do you now? I spent my life trying to destroy what humiliated me. But last night I realized I was never humiliated by you. I was humbled. He took a deep breath. You beat me because you were better. Not luckier, better, and I hated you for it. Evelyn tilted her head. And now? He swallowed hard. Now I envy you. You have something I'll never buy, Grace. Silence filled the room. Then Evelyn smiled gently. Grace can't be bought, Maxwell. It's only found when you stop gambling with people's lives. He nodded, eyes wet. You're right. Reaching into his coat pocket, Maxwell pulled out a thick envelope and set it on the table. This is a donation to the Alzheimer's Foundation. In your name. I want to do something right before it's too late. Amara looked at him, suspicious. Why should we believe you? He turned to her. Because I've already lost everything that mattered. Money means nothing now. He paused, looking back at Evelyn. You gave me back a piece of my humanity last night. Thank you. And with that, he turned and left, shoulders heavy with the weight of regret. For a long moment, neither Amara nor Evelyn spoke. Finally, Amara whispered, Do you think he's changed? Evelyn smiled faintly. People like him rarely change, but sometimes they remember who they were before they got lost. That's enough. The days that followed were a blur. Evelyn's story spread across the world. News outlets hailed her as the queen who never forgot. Poker legends called her a prodigy. Alzheimer's foundations received record donations. And Maxwell Belmont quietly stepped down from his company, retreating from the spotlight. Months later, Evelyn sat on the porch, the sun setting behind her. Amara joined her with 2 mugs of tea. You know, Amara said softly, you've inspired a lot of people. Evelyn chuckled. If my scrambled brain can do that, then I suppose I've done my part. They sat in silence for a while. Then Evelyn said something that made Amara's heart ache and swell all at once. You know what I remember most? Evelyn whispered. Not the games, not the money, not the men who tried to beat me. I remember your laugh, Amara. That's my lucky card. Amara blinked back tears. Then I'll keep laughing, Mama, for both of us. As the stars began to appear, the soft hum of life filled the air. Somewhere far away, Maxwell Belmont watched the same sunset, a faint smile crossing his face. He lost everything but for the first time in decades. He felt free, and Evelyn, the woman who had once been forgotten by her own mind, had become a symbol of strength for millions. Not because she'd beaten a billionaire twice, but because she'd done the impossible. She'd remembered who she was. The world would remember her name long after the lights dimmed and the cards stopped shuffling. Evelyn Cole, the queen who never played for power, only for love.